let's talk about the type of operator. So using the type of operator, we can get to know the data type of any variable in JavaScript. We can detect the primitive data type. We can also detect an object data type. But of course, if we want to know in detail about the object description, we need to use instance of operator along with type of. So let's try to see with a couple of examples how exactly the type of operator help us to identify the data types. So very first thing, I'll just try to console the type of a string. So type of is an operator for which this ABC as a string is an operand. So it is simply something like we write a plus plus. So in which this plus plus is an operator and this a is an operand which is taking participation in this arithmetic operation. In the same way, this type of is an operator and this is an operand, and result of this will be the data type. So what is the data type here? The data type is string. Let's try to understand with the second one. In the similar way, I'll try to give an integer number. So I'll be getting a number data type. That's good. If I say a true statement here, I'll be getting a boolean. So these are the three basic primitive data types in JavaScript. Along with these three basic data type, primitive data type, JavaScript next generation ES6 version also introduced two more new primitive data type, that is big int and symbol. So with big int, for example, I'm trying to display a number, or maybe I want to store a number inside a variable which is very big and that cannot be stored inside a number data type. Let's say it's a very big number. So if I want to use that, I need to use big int data type. I just need to append small n at the end of this particular integer. Make sure inside the big int we can just use the integer number as the name itself suggests. We cannot use the floating point number. There is a separate lecture on this big int, how exactly it works if you want to understand it in more detail. But for now, we just want to understand how the data type is identified. So it's a big int. In the similar way, there is also one more primitive data type added, that is symbol. Again, for symbol data type also there is a separate lecture to understand in more detail. For now, we'll just identify it is displaying its correct data type. That's good. Let's talk about the other integer constant. What I mean with that, for example, generally we will be using NaN. So not a number. So what is the data type for the not a number? So when the not a number is being generated, when you are trying to perform a calculation which is not suitable, or maybe some invalid data is getting generated in the calculation, so not a number will be generated. And the data type of not a number will be a number itself. In the similar way, if I also try to use infinity, so for this also the data type will be an number. So this is just for our understanding what are the data types for not a number, infinity, or maybe you can try with null, undefined, and anything. Let's try to work around the data type called object, which is very important. So object ID 101. So this is a pretty straightforward object here. Let's try to understand the data type for object OB. So it's showing object. So object is also primitive data type. But which type of object you are creating, that's different choice that we can identify using instance of. What I mean with that, let's say for example, I can also create a number as an object. So this is not a primitive number now, the variable n here. This is a number object. If I want to confirm that, I can just say type of the n variable. So it's an object. In the similar way, if I try with string, boolean, for that also it will be objects generation. This is not a primitive data type. But if you want to identify this object is a number object, or maybe this object is a string object, let me just also give you one more example. So ABC, and let me just write here str. So it will also show as an object. So both are object, but how to identify this is a number object or maybe this is a string object? So for that, we can just say an instance of number object. So this statement will return you, this expression will return you true if it's a number data type. So it's a true. And if I just use a similar statement over here for str, it should return as false because str is a string object. It is not an instance of number. So it's returning true. Something strange is happening here. Let me just confirm. Yes, I'm mentioning here a wrong data type. It should be the object, the constructor of string. Now it should be the false for sure. Yes. And when it will be true, when I'll say the str is instance of a string object. That's perfect. So this is how it works. Let's also try the type of operator with function, because function is also a data type in background. So if I say here function, a test function in which I don't want to perform any action, I'll just keep it empty. And here I'll try to say what is the type of the test function. So what's a data type? So it's a function. So with this we understood function is also having its own data type with the name function. So this is how we can identify the different data types. That could be primitive, that could be object, and even in object we can better classify it by using instance of and many more. And at last we have also seen the function is also having its own data type in JavaScript.